When thousands and thousands took to the streets in dozens of cities after George Floyd's murder, demanding an end to police violence and systemic racism, many in law enforcement were quick to vilify demonstrators and blame them for violent clashes with officers. But here in Boston, one officer not only admitted that he instigated violence, he bragged about it. That is, until he realized the body camera was recording it all.
Then I had to keep coming. I'm hitting people with the car. Did you hear me? I was like, get the
This thing is on. This thing is...
Oh, no, I know. What I'm saying is, though, they were in front, they didn't hit anybody, and, just driving.
That was Boston Police Sgt. Clifton McHale in footage obtained by an attorney representing some of the protesters arrested that night. And when the video was published by online news outlet The Appeal months later, McHale was put on leave pending the results of an internal affairs investigation. Of note, this was not his first since joining the department 24 years ago. The Boston Globe reports that McHale was also investigated in 2005 and ultimately given a one-year unpaid suspension after they found that he, quote, had inappropriate sexual relations with a highly intoxicated woman while on duty near Faneuil Hall. This from the same force that kept on one-time union president Patrick Rose, despite an internal investigation that found he likely committed crimes when he was accused of sexual assault on a 12-year-old boy and is now accused of molesting 5 other kids, with another former union head, Thomas Nee, who recently agreed to plead guilty to conspiracy to commit theft and embezzlement in an overtime scam, and which elevated Dennis White, who was only fired after he became commissioner, and it came to light that he'd been accused of domestic violence. As for this latest investigation into McHale, the findings of which were released on Friday, Internal Affairs declared his statement was, quote, unbecoming of an officer, but they also concluded he did not actually hit anyone with his car, as he said he did on that tape. So in the end, he got an unpaid 10-day suspension, only 8 of which he'll actually have to serve, provided he does not get into any more trouble in the next 6 months. And while external investigations could still be launched in the case, including by the fledgling Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, many are wondering how McHale is possibly still on the force. I'm guessing that includes my next guest, the attorney who first obtained the body cam footage, Carlton Williams. He's a civil rights attorney and adjunct professor of law at Cornell University. We invited Acting Police Commissioner Gregory Long to join us as well, but we're told he was unavailable. Carl, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
What was your reaction to the 8-day unpaid leave and reinstatement for McHale?
I'll say at the same time, not surprised and disappointed. Because a lot of us in the civil rights community are hoping for a new day in police accountability and transparency. And it seems like a little bit more of the same.
Let's get to the transparency or lack of it in a minute. They concluded, as I said, that while they did say his conduct was unbecoming of a police officer, I would say that is a bit of an understatement, they concluded he did not hit anyone with his car. And I assume when they say he was driving cautiously, I assume we're supposed to take away from that it wasn't because he missed hitting somebody, but because he wasn't trying. How did you read those conclusions?
I don't know whether that report is padding it, creating a situation that is nice for the Boston police brass, and nor do I care, because either he hit people and he tried to hit people, that's thing A, or thing B, he was lying on camera. He was just talking to subordinate police officers on camera and saying things that were lies. I remember some police commissioners ago saying, we will not suborn liars. If police officers are people who are lying to the public and to other officers, that's not something we will accept. He is certainly doing one of those things, right? He said a thing that's not true. It's a really weird thing to say, but either way, if someone was a firefighter or someone was EMS or someone was a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer or a judge, many of these people have to have even the appearance of propriety. This is Like if a firefighter said, well, I set 10 houses on fire last night. Ha ha ha, isn't that really funny? And then they said, well, he really didn't set any on fire. I would say that is a problematic person. I don't know that we should be paying them $50, $100, $150,000, $200,000 of city money.
So can I draw a conclusion from what you said that you think he should have been terminated, should have been fired for what he did?
I think that we should not have police on the force that behave the way this officer did.
You know, how relevant are the prior behaviors of his? There were a couple of things I was about to call them minor by comparison. A weapon he took home, pardon me, he didn't take home. It was not properly safeguarded. He took a police car home without authorization. And let me read this again. The department concluded he inappropriately had sexual relations with the highly intoxicated woman. I should say, if I did that, and I have no responsibility for protecting anybody, I would have been fired in a nanosecond. He got a 1-year suspension, reinstated to the force, and then promoted to sergeant. How relevant is that behavior 16 years after the fact?
Jim, if you did that, I would be representing you in court. And I'd be proud to do it. But there's another word for that. And you can clearly, everyone who read that sentence or that phrase in the Globe or places it was reported goes, wow, that's a lot of words to not say one word, right? There's a word for having inappropriate sexual intercourse with a highly intoxicated person, right? Everybody knows that word is rape, right? Mm-hmm. I've represented people charged with that. If a person cannot consent to sexual contact, sexual intercourse, that's rape, right? There are different degrees of that, but that is rape. And we're jumping through and doing flips through hoops, and I understand why the Globe is doing it, but why is that happening for some people and not for other people? Why is it happening for people who work for the Boston Police Department and not for other people? Well, I don't think it should be happening for other people, but it seems to be a special protection.
Well, you know, you may not know the answer to this, but you can give me your sense, and it also may be a naive question. Why would the police department protect somebody like this? The implication in some of the Globe reporting was he's got a long line. I believe his father was in the department. Why would they not want to shed somebody who has this kind of record on the job?
I think that's difficult to say. I think there really are three factors, and I don't know which ones, how all of these, mix together. I think he seems to have familial connections to a lot of folks in positions of power across the city, in the state government also. I think there's a not tarnishing the brass just in general. So you see this with police who are pulled over for drunk driving. You see this with police who are commit acts of domestic violence or are alleged to commit acts of domestic violence. I think the police department would rather keep it so-called internal, not airing the dirty laundry. And I think the power of the police patrolmen's association and the superior officers, the police associations that protect these situations and these officers and these superior officers. I think the combination of those three things shield officers from accountability deeply.
You know, you mentioned the word transparency before, and I have to say that bothers me almost as much as the underlying behavior. We remember a few months ago, this actually is on the mayor to a degree. The acting mayor redacted 80% of the investigation report into the situation with Patrick Rose, who is credibly accused of being a serial child molester, saying that she was attempting to protect the victims, survivors, all of whom we want protected, but I don't think that merits redaction of 80% of a report. Then if I read the story correctly here, the only reason we ultimately found out what the discipline was in this McHale case was because there was such an uproar when the investigation conclusion was released by the acting mayor, by the two candidates for mayor in the future. Transparency is not their middle name. But I assume this is not just the Boston Police Department.
People frequently ask me, like, which is the best police department and which is the worst? And I think that's not, the question that we want to answer. Is all over this country and outside of the country even, people are demanding police accountability. Police are in prisons and jails, accountability for sheriffs, wardens. and other folks in the criminal legal system. I think for too long, because we have poor, Black, brown, immigrant folks that are incarcerated, and people say, well, it's good. Like, we don't care. We actually would prefer that to be a harsh situation, a violent situation. And I would suggest that just creates more violence in our society, right? If we have, if every time someone spoke out of turn in class in a high school, if a teacher smacked them in the face or, locked them in a closet, that is going to be a violent school. And I think if people believe that the people who are supposed to be protecting us don't protect us, right, demonstrably don't protect us and are violating the law. And many other people that night, I was there that night, from that morning, that afternoon, and that night at the protest, and seeing what I saw with my own eyes and seeing what we saw on the body cameras later. There were police who took merchandise from stores and gave it to other officers. There were people who brutalized people, and there were people who used chemical weapons on peaceful protesters. And there are many thousands of people in the city who go, well, the police don't care about us, right? We were protesting in the streets for police accountability, and they attacked us.
Well, speaking of police accountability, is this the end of the story, or should the Office of Police Accountability, I think in transparency, it's called, or the Suffolk County DA, Rachel Rollins, should either of them be taking a look at the McHale situation?
I think they should all be looking at, we have an outgoing acting mayor, we have an likely outgoing district attorney. And a lot of times I think it's difficult for people who have, purportedly progressive politics to say, well, I can't get in a fight with those people. It's the perfect time to do this. It's the perfect, and Mayor Janey just, for the first time ever, declared Indigenous Peoples Day. I think that was a brave and incredible stance. There's a lot of other brave, incredible things that Mayor Janey can do, and I hope that she will, and I believe that she will. And there's a lot of other things that the district attorney, when she on her way up and out.
Carl, thank you for your work and thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.